West Virginia is reforming the state's foster care system. I had a one-on-one interview with Governor Patrick Morrisey about what led to the change and how things will be different going forward.
There have been a lot of problems that I've inherited that we want to fix.
West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey met with me virtually to talk about making policy changes to the state's foster care system. He laid out 6 reforms total. The state has been plagued by serious child welfare issues for years. Most recently, there was the fatal neglect of a teenager in Boone County last year, as well as the conviction in March of a couple for abuse and neglect of their foster care children.
You have to make sure that you're doing the right thing and that you're letting people know what's going on. There are tough problems facing the state, and a lot of times people don't want to talk about it. It might not be as popular, right? And we've seen that, right? People only focus on what will make them popular. We need to make sure that we're actually solving the problems that are going to help our kids and help our state.
Governor Morrisey started his term in January, so he's been in office for less than 6 months.
We have to move the needle on rankings, and child welfare certainly needed a lot of work, and people didn't wrestle with it in the past.
The new policy mandates that certain information, including the results of investigations, be disclosed in serious child welfare cases. The request for this kind of information in the past was met with silence.
I think the biggest thing that we're looking for is transparency and accountability. It was just absolutely wrong that that information was kept from the public all those years. That's not right.
There will also be a critical incident review team to conduct a deeper dive into every critical incident in the state. Governor Morrisey says more fixes are coming, especially as they get feedback.
We're still taking a comprehensive review of the child welfare system in West Virginia. That's going to take some time, but we're on the case. We're working very hard.
West Virginia has the country's highest rate of children in foster care. According to NBC News, it is 4 times higher than that of the U.S. as a whole. You can watch the entire interview with the governor and see all 6 reforms listed by heading over to this web article on WTAP.com. Police say they arrested